Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As you can tell, this is being a recorded session. So if you do happen to need anything for clarity following tonight's session, if you do need to check in about anything, then we can certainly pass along copies, and many of that will be available online on the STU website as well. So yeah, thank you again for making the time to join us this evening for the New Brunswick info session. Assuming most of you are joining from New Brunswick, and if you've happened to join from neighboring parts or even kind of further pathways away from New Brunswick, we're still happy to have you nonetheless. But my name is Mike. I'm the digital admissions counselor here at St. Thomas University. And I'm joined as well by my colleague Bailey, who will be serving as the primary MC of tonight's proceedings. So Bailey, if you want to say hello to the folks joining from home, introduce yourself a little bit. We'll wait a moment here for a couple more attendees before we get started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be a part of this tonight. Thank you for coming, first and foremost. Some of the names that are popping in, I recognize, which is awesome. Hopefully you recognize me, but if not, I'll introduce myself as well. So I'm Bailey. I'm the New Brunswick admissions counselor. So you might have seen me at your school. But yeah, I'm just really happy to be here. Happy that you're here as well. So yeah, it's just good to be here. Mike, I want to ask you just kind of before we get going. I know you're sort of digital, but sometimes you do get on the road. So I'm just kind of curious what's the highlight for you in terms of maybe some of your treks that you've been on this fall.
Yeah, by all means, I'll keep it New Brunswick specific for this case, but let me think. One of the neater things that I could say that I saw at New Brunswick High School this fall, I know that every school does, spirit weeks or theme weeks or what have you, but a really neat concept on one of the days of a spirit week that I saw might be a bit of a homer bias just because it might have been the high school that I went to, which all power to them. But one of the high schools in southern New Brunswick in the Anglophone South District, one of the spirit days was an Adam Sandler look-alike day. So this didn't mean that you had to physically look like Adam Sandler to take part in the day. What you actually got to do was kind of pick, I don't know, let's say an era of Adam Sandler, if you will, and you got to pretty much dress, could be a character, could just be Adam Sandler in streetwear with the baggy gym shorts and an old thrifted t-shirt or what have you. But nonetheless, that probably takes the cake for neatest, most kind of unique thing I've seen on the road so far this fall. So I'll turn it back to you though before we get started.
Yeah, that's a good one, and mine is sort of on the same kind of path as costumes. This year Arrow was back, so it was kind of group tours in terms of visiting schools, and I was actually on the road for Halloween, and on Halloween we were actually at Southern Victoria. So if anybody's from that high school, shout out to you. We had an awesome costume come to our booth. They were dressed as a chicken, but the chicken was a full blow up costume. So really well done. It's on my Instagram if you want to check that out. We'll kind of plug those things after as well, but we all have work Instagram, so if you haven't followed us, definitely check those things out. But yeah, so we'll get going with the presentation and kind of go from there. So yeah, welcome. This is kind of an info session all about New Brunswick. We have some panelists that will kind of join us after the presentation. We're all from New Brunswick, so we can kind of speak to those things if you have any questions or anything like that. So again, we just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here tonight, and we're going to get right into the presentation. So I introduced myself a little bit, but I'll do it again. My name is Bailey. I'm actually a STU alumni as well. So I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in 2021. I majored in psychology and criminology and criminal justice. So those are my two majors. But I loved it so much that I'm still here. But my role is different now. So I'm an admissions counselor. Essentially what that means is I help students from start, kind of giving you the information that you need about who we are here at St. Thomas, all the way until you get here in the fall. So part of that is program exploration, so helping you kind of understand what all of our programs are, helping you with the application process, so actually applying to come to St. Thomas. Scholarships and bursaries, I help with those things as well. And then really sort of optimizing your STU experience. So really kind of helping you with questions that you might have and all of those kinds of things. So that's kind of who I am and what I do here in my role as an admissions counselor. So how to get involved in tonight's session. So as you've already noticed, your camera and your microphone will be off for the duration of tonight's session. So you don't have to worry about turning on your camera or your microphone to ask any questions. We do want you to ask questions if you have questions that you want answered. We're happy to do that sort of through our panel discussion after the presentation. If you have questions, the best way to sort of get those answered is the Q&A function in the toolbar below or on the side or the top of your screen. Feel free to send us a question, even if it's during the presentation. If something comes up, please feel free to use that as well tonight so that you can get involved in those things. And then we'll kind of have some other things that we'll mention later on to stay connected with us and stay in touch. So those are the ways that you can get involved in tonight's session. So we like to say that we're a small town charm with a big city spirit. Obviously, if you've been to Fredericton, you might already feel some of that already. I always said that it doesn't matter the season, there's always something going on here in Fredericton. Obviously, we're the provincial capital. Why I like to mention that is because there's a lot of opportunities because of the fact that we're in a provincial capital, whether that's internships, experiential learning, different things that are going on. There's always something happening within Fredericton and on our campus as well. So that's great. There's lots of music festivals, art, culture, those types of things are all here in the provincial capital as well. A ton of walking and biking trails that we really sort of encourage our students to explore. It's a really great way to kind of see downtown Fredericton and that area. The one thing that I also like to mention too is that within your tuition and fees here at St. Thomas, we actually include a city bus pass. So if you're not coming to us with a vehicle, that's totally okay. When I was a student here, I actually didn't have my own vehicle, so I use the bus pass a lot. So that's something that we include within our tuition and fees here at St. Thomas as well. So we are Canada's only public university that's exclusively dedicated to the liberal arts. So what that means is that we focus on the Bachelor of Arts, and within that, we kind of focus on the humanities and social sciences within that context. So you're really getting a good education here because we focus on one program in our undergrad, which is our Bachelor of Arts degree. We're also a really diverse campus. We're roughly around 1,800 students, but anywhere between 10 and 11% of that population is actually represented over 35 different countries every year, which makes our campus a really welcoming environment to be in as well. And you're learning from a lot of different cultures and different backgrounds and different walks of life, which really kind of helps you as students have a really great experience here at STU. So what another statistic that makes us a little bit more unique is that we cap all of our classes at no more than 60 people. So for example, an intro psychology class, which is typically a pretty large class at other institutions, you'll never have more than 60 people in that room at one time. Our average class size is actually 24 students, so it's even smaller than that. The benefit of that is that you get to connect with not only your peers really well, but your professors really well too. So that by the time you're leaving St. Thomas, you actually have really great references along with your degree. So that's a really unique feature to us here at St. Thomas. The other statistic that we like to let people know is that 99% of our full-time professors hold the highest degree in their field. So essentially what that means is that if a PhD is the highest level that they can obtain academically, they have that degree. What that means for you is that you're actually learning from people who have gone out and done that research in that field extensively, which is really great because oftentimes they bring that research back into the classroom. And with our small classes, you're able to kind of have that one-on-one experience with your professor when it comes to academics and things like that and their research. So really great opportunities to get involved that way as well. So like I was saying, within our Bachelor of Arts program, you really kind of focus on the social sciences and the humanities within that program, and kind of you can kind of mix and match those things as you go and kind of build your degree based on your interests. And part of what we do here in terms of my role is helping you kind of figure out what those things that you're interested are. And kind of show you those different programs and talk about those things. So that's kind of what you can do within your Bachelor of Arts degree. So these are all of the different disciplines that you can take within your Bachelor of Arts. A lot of our students double, if not triple major on their degrees because we allow you so much time to kind of explore your interests. We encourage students to take other things that you might not know a lot about. You might find a passion for those things, and by the end of your 4 or 5 years, you'll actually have those things on your degree, which can be really useful too. So we have a lot of different options for you to take and kind of explore those things. If you know, for example, I always like to use myself because I love criminology and criminal justice and psychology. I'm a little bit biased, but if you know you want to take those things, that's great. But maybe try something that you've never heard of before because you might really like it as well. So these are all of the different things that you can kind of study here at St. Thomas. So we also have the Bachelor of Social Work here as well. So the really unique part to that program is that you spend your first 2 years in your Bachelor of Arts, and then you apply to get into your Bachelor of Social Work for your last 2 years, so year 3 and year 4. When you graduate from St. Thomas in that 4-year time frame, you actually graduate with the Bachelor of Social Work instead of the Bachelor of Arts. The reason why we put you in the Bachelor of Arts first is that we want you to get used to the pace of university so that when you get into this program, you do really well because of that. So at the end of your 4 years, you actually have your Bachelor of Social Work, which is the degree that you're interested in. So that's a really unique program here at St. Thomas as well. So experiential learning is at the heart of what we do. We really want you to take your learning outside the classroom as much as possible. And because of where we happen to be, we have a lot of partnerships with different organizations here in Fredericton and really want to connect you with those different opportunities so that you can have that on your resume when you leave St. Thomas with your degree. Giving you that experience really helps you as a learner kind of apply what you're learning in the classroom outside as much as possible. And so that's really what we're trying to do within all of our different disciplines is give you those opportunities to kind of explore your learning in that way as well. So we have an office that's exclusively dedicated to helping you with those connections and really career development as well. The really unique part to that office is that 100% of our internships are either paid or for credit opportunities. So not only are you getting a hands-on experience, but you're either getting paid for that or it's for your degree. So bonus, that's really kind of unique to what we do in that office as well. We often will match students with what they're best interested in. If you're taking a class that you're really interested in, but you're not quite sure what you can do with that degree, they'll help you find an organization or a nonprofit organization and match you with an internship there so that you can have that type of experience so that you can know kind of what you can do with those different interests that you have. as well. So that's really meaningful work that they do within that office. I recommend, if you can, to go to that office and talk to them about what you're interested in, so you can really have that hands-on experience along with your learning in the classroom as well. So if you've ever thought about maybe traveling while you study, that is definitely an option that you can do here at St. Thomas. We have two different types of travel opportunities. The first one being international exchanges. So those are typically 1 or 2 semesters long. So either half a year study or a full year study. But then we also have travel study opportunities as well, which are typically a little bit smaller, and they might be lined up with a class that you might take, say in the summertime or something like that. So any of those countries that have a little asterisk beside it are typically countries that we've matched different classes within our travel study opportunities as well. So if you've ever thought about traveling while you study, this is a really good option to do that as well. And as you can see from the list there, we have a ton of different countries that we have partnership universities at as well. So it's definitely an option to still work on your St. Thomas degree, but be in a different part of the world while you do that. Definitely a cool opportunity to do. So what's life like on campus? I always like to talk about this part because it was something that I really connected with as a student and really kind of made my time here at St. Thomas what it was, and it was awesome. So I love to talk about life on campus. One of those things being residence. We have 3 residence buildings here on campus. They're all a little bit different in what they offer. So we have Harrington, Vanier, and Holy Cross. They're all a little bit different in terms of who they house, but they all have the same types of things within it. So they have laundry, cable, fiber op. They have kitchens, lounge spaces, study spaces, all of those things. I definitely recommend, if you haven't come to campus yet, this is a good opportunity to kind of plug campus tours as well. When you come on a campus tour, you will actually see a residence building and a room. So it gives you an idea of what your housing situation could look like and different things like that as well. And then we do have dining hall options available as well. We have 3 different meal plans and the dining hall is great. I always get asked honestly how the food is, and I really enjoyed it. There's 3 different meal plans. Chef Mike is great. He's our head chef there. He's won multiple awards for his cooking. So he's somebody that you can go to and talk about any dietary restrictions or anything like that you might have as well. So living in residence really allows you to have everything that you need kind of taken care of, and the convenience of being on campus as well. So being, only 50 feet away from your class is sometimes really nice to have as well. But I also tell all of the first year students that I meet that living in residence really allows you to gain some independence, but also meet people from around the world. Like I was saying before, about 10 to 11% of our population every year is represented over 35 different countries. You will often have friends that are from other parts of the world, and you meet them through residence. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the panel discussion as well, but I can't stress how living away from home and living in residence really is something that I recommend to all students. It was an awesome time. I still talk to my first year roommate. We will be best friends until the day we die. It was a great opportunity to meet people who are excited but nervous and living away from home for the first time as well. So it was just an awesome opportunity to meet those core group of friends that I still have today. So we have a lot of support here at St. Thomas, whether it's academic or personal. We really want to ensure that you are supported as a person. And so whatever sort of help you need, we want to ensure that it's here for you. In terms of academic support, I always like to plug the accessibility services. I myself have 2 learning disabilities. So while I was here as a student, that was really imperative for me to have those academic supports in place. This is a very short list of the things that we do have for you. But those things are really important. We know that sometimes the transition to university can be difficult. So we want to ensure that we have lots of academic support, but also personal support as well. We have mental health counselors here, different types of mental health events that happen. One of my favorites, I'm a dog person, so I really like the dog therapy events. We often have dogs come once or twice a semester and kind of de-stress that way. So if you're a dog person, those events are something that you might want to check out during your time here as well. The other thing that I really recommend to students that I talk to is really getting involved in the community here and kind of continuing things that you might be involved in at your high school here at the university level too. Some of those things are clubs and societies. If you're involved in those types of things at your school, we want you to continue those things here too. It really gives you a well-rounded experience if you're involved in different things that you really enjoy. I was part of the STU athletics program here through the men's rugby program. I loved playing rugby, so I wanted to continue that while I was here as a student as well, and really kind of showed me a different group of friends from my academic side of things as well. So it's just a really good way to continue those things that you already really like here at university as well. And again, you meet people from all different types of things that you get involved in. So we really recommend that you do those things as well. And check out all of the events that are happening on campus too. There's always something going on. So we definitely recommend getting involved in those things as well. So becoming a student. So this is something that I like to talk about, especially here in the fall. We're getting a little bit closer to the holiday season. So you might have already done step one, which is getting to know St. Thomas. If you're here on this webinar, you're already doing number one. So that's great. If you haven't applied yet, you're more than welcome to do that. Every year, our application opens on October 1st. So if you're in grade 11 or 10 right now, that date never really changes. It's always October 1st of the fall year. Once you get accepted, congratulations, welcome to St. Thomas. Then we kind of start talking about scholarships and bursaries and applying for residence and things like that. We recommend that you apply to residence as soon as possible and definitely before the April 15th deadline to guarantee a spot in residence as well. The next step would be confirming your enrollment, so paying $100 deposit by May 15th. And that's a soft date. It kind of changes depending on the year, but typically sometime in the spring, you'll want to make that decision to confirm your enrollment. And then the fun part, we actually help you pick your courses for the entire first year for you. So those are fun times because we actually get to talk about the classes that you're going to take and help you through that process as well. So that's sort of our steps to becoming a student. And some of those you may have already done. So if that's you, congrats. And yeah, so just to keep those things in mind, those deadlines and things like that as well. If I didn't mention it before, the scholarships and bursaries deadline is always March 1st of every year as well. So that's something that we really make it easy for our students to do. So like I said, if you've been accepted to St. Thomas already, then the next step is to actually apply for scholarships and bursaries. We make it really easy for our students. It's one application for all of our scholarships and then one application for all of our bursaries. So instead of going to our website and applying to 6 or 7 different named scholarships, we actually do that work for you when you apply for scholarships. You actually apply for all of our scholarships, and then we actually match you with what you're best eligible for. So part of what we do is also helping students read their scholarship essays and kind of help you through that way as well. So we're always here to answer questions about that and help you along that process as well. So again, I've kind of mentioned this within the presentation a little bit, but I'll do it one more time. If you haven't been to campus and you've applied and you've been accepted, even if you haven't and you want to come check us out, feel free to do so. Our campus tours are awesome. We do them both virtually and in person. If you're from the area, if you live close by, definitely come for an in-person campus tour, because you can see the classrooms, you can see the residence buildings and the rooms and things like that. We make them very, very personal. We typically match you with a current student who is interested or taking the same classes that you're interested in taking as well, so that you can ask them questions while you're on your tour about their experience. So I highly recommend coming for a campus tour if you haven't done so already. So some different things that we always like to kind of keep you up to date with in terms of our in-person and virtual events. The next big one is sort of our virtual winter open house, which the date will be coming later on, but it'll be sometime in the new year. January or February is kind of when we're looking at those things. So definitely keep those in mind. Follow us on our social media, because you'll get a lot of invites to those things through our social media. It's also a really good way to kind of see things that are up and coming, different events that are either virtual or in person here on our campus as well. Again, I mentioned the March 1st deadline for scholarships and bursaries. So those are the big things that are coming up for you in the new year, just to kind of keep those things in mind. We also have an in-person spring open house, which is March 25th as well. So mark that on your calendar. Definitely come to that, because it is a great opportunity to come to campus once again. So if you haven't done those things, definitely do that. And apply. If you haven't applied, definitely do so. It doesn't hurt to apply. Typically, our application opens on October 1st of every year, so you're more than welcome to apply. It is not too late to apply, so please do so if you haven't done it already. So I will invite the rest of the panel onto camera, and Mike, I see your name first. I know we were chatting earlier, but if you'd like to introduce yourself once again, feel free to do so.
I absolutely can, Bailey, and thank you again to everybody for sticking around, and thank you for the questions that we already have appearing to roll in. I probably won't ramble on for too long, because again, my name is Mike. I'm the digital admissions counselor here with the recruitment admissions team at St. Thomas. So if you've attended a previous virtual event before, chances are you've seen plenty of me. So if there's any questions that we can help with in the meantime too, we'll obviously be helping with that tonight. But saving my breath a little bit, I will allow for our two student panelists to introduce themselves here for a moment. So probably in the order that Bailey's already kind of kickstarted us in. Julia and then Lauren, if both of you just want to remind folks of your year, where you're from, what you're studying, what you're doing, just kind of a general sense of you, that'd be great. And then we'll get started on the questions.
Perfect. Sounds good. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Julia, and I'm a fourth-year student studying human rights and political science. I'm from just outside St. John, New Brunswick, so I'm also a New Brunswick student, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you guys tonight and answering any of your questions about academics or just the university experience here at STU in general.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a third-year student at STU, and I'm from St. John, New Brunswick. I'm doing a double major in criminology and fine arts and a minor in psychology. I'm also a part of the student union here, and yeah, that's for me.
Awesome. So I'll sort of pitch this question to everyone. We have a question here about what is your favorite thing about Fredericton? They've only ever visited family to get to the city. So I guess what is everyone's favorite part of Fredericton? And maybe Mike, I'll start with you, and then we'll just go down the list that way.
I absolutely can, but you're probably putting yourself in a tough position because you're probably going to have to answer last to this now. But I would say, let me think, my favorite thing about Fredericton, it's kind of broken down into two different qualities. One would just be the community and the people. Bailey's already kind of touched on it in a more kind of elegant way than this, but Fredericton does have that kind of ideal balance, I would say, for a student city, just because it's got enough of that urban kind of offering that it still leaves you plenty to do, whether it be, attending a festival or going to an art show or seeing a show or going to grab a bite to eat with your friends downtown. There's plenty going on in that sense. But then the community is tight knit enough, kind of similar to Stu. It's a community within a community almost, but outside of campus, even the people of Fredericton are quite good people. And I know that most people joining are probably from New Brunswick, and we already kind of have that familiarity with maritime friendliness or what have you. But I would say that the community is really supportive of the students, which is a really nice change to see. Just for a lot of different Canadian cities, the universities and colleges might exist within a town, but they're just kind of a part of, existing there. Whereas here it's kind of embedded into the community. But on top of that, my favorite thing about Fredericton is just the access to get outside and go for even something like a walk. It's really easy to just kind of pop in some headphones and go for a walk, listen to a podcast, a playlist, whatever you have going on. And it's really kind of easy to just kind of escape and clear your head a little bit. So hopefully I didn't steal anything from anybody just yet, but I'll pass it on to Julia.
Yes, Mike, you actually stole everything. But one thing I will echo specifically is like kind of like the balance that we have here in Fredericton. Like I've traveled for work for student union to like Ottawa, for instance, and people there will say that Fredericton is like a mini Ottawa because we still have like that community feel, but then we're a government city being the capital. So there's a lot of opportunities if you're into like political science or disciplines like that. And then again, you still have those opportunities to get involved, like go downtown and go to nice restaurants and go to festivals. There's those opportunities, but then you still have that community feel. So that kind of corresponds to like what Mike was saying. And then another thing, since you guys are from New Brunswick, I'm assuming, I really like Fredericton because it's a nice city within New Brunswick, but then it's still accessible for me to visit my hometown. If I wanted to go home, I'm just like an hour away. So I have that experience of being away from home in a city, but then I also have the accessibility of returning home when I want to. So that's why I like it.
My favorite part about Fredericton is how close everything is. I just like that it's so easy to get anywhere around in Fredericton. Like where I'm from, St. John, I'm from like just outside of St. John, so like it was always like kind of longer to get to like the mall, for example. And I just find like where we are in Fredericton, everything is pretty close. And I also like that we have quite a bit of like coffee shops and nice restaurants to go and like study at. I find there's always like something new going on. So yeah.
Yeah, I fingers crossed that you guys weren't going to say my favorite part of Fredericton, and luckily you didn't. So my favorite part would definitely be all of the restaurants here. I am still finding new places to eat, even though I've been here for 4+ years now. So I would definitely say that Fredericton has an awesome food culture. There's tons of different like farmers markets and things like that to get involved in on the weekends that have a ton of just different types of food at it. So I definitely think that, as being a foodie, that is definitely one of my favorite parts of Fredericton for sure.
Perfect. Not too much toe stepping or anything like that, but I need to say the farmers market will always find its way if a question like this comes along. So somebody had to get it. So thank you, Billy, for that. We have a question here that I might direct to the more recent student experiences here in Julia and Lauren. It's probably not going to be that long of one here, but we have someone asking, probably in the nature of like even coffee shops, could be a restaurant, could be anything. Where is your favorite place to study off campus? So we'll go to Julia, and then we'll go to Lauren on that.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, because there are so many study spots on campus, I do predominantly study on campus and I'm always on like living on campus 24/7, but I do like to go downtown and there are a few cafes. I know Lauren mentioned as well, a couple. There's like the Abbey, there's the Tipsy Muse, very like modern, cute cafes that you can stay and study right downtown, and downtown's also an accessible walking distance and you can take the bus down there from campus. So I will admit mostly study on campus, but I also like to go downtown sometimes to study at a coffee shop.
I also mainly study on campus. I live super duper close to campus, so it's the most convenient, and like we have Tim Hortons here, so that's perfect. But if I had to pick my favorite, I think is the Tipsy Muse Cafe, just because it's like such a cute little environment, and sometimes they have live music and stuff, which is great. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's another question here about what was your favorite class outside of your primary program? I'll answer this first and then maybe pitch it to Julia or Lauren. One of my favorite classes I took in my last semester of my degree. And it was something I did not know what it was. And it was something that I was taking as an elective class to kind of finish off my degree here at St. Thomas. And I took an intro to gerontology class. And I always get asked when I do presentations, what is gerontology? And gerontology is the study of older and aging adults. And I didn't really know anything about that. And so I took this class mostly as an elective, but absolutely loved it and sort of regretted not taking some of those classes earlier on in my degree, because I really did enjoy kind of learning those things that I hadn't in my psychology classes and certainly in my criminology and criminal justice classes. So gerontology was something I wish I could kind of go back and take more of, because I really enjoyed the one class that I did take, which was out of my primary program as well. But Julia, do you maybe have a favorite class maybe outside of your primary programs that you're taking?
Sure. Yeah. So in my first year, I made it a point to take courses from various programs because I didn't know like what direction I wanted to go into and what program I wanted to major in. I wouldn't have said this if you would have asked me in first year, but intro to philosophy, I did both part 1 and 2 of that, and that they were the most intellectually challenging courses I've ever taken. And at the time, I found it really hard and I was stressed out. But the skills, like the writing and argumentative skills I learned in that first year class, I still benefit me as I'm in my 4th year. So sometimes you're taking a course and like you think it might sound daunting or be out of your comfort zone, and it can be really beneficial because it really helps me when I'm writing like my human rights and political science papers, even in my 4th year.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I know a lot of people that have come and gone through philosophy, and what is philosophy is almost the best way of answering that question. You need to be able to kind of step back and almost have a third eye almost. But yeah, no, the challenges that can kind of be hurdled and then managed going forward is really neat. Let's see, we'll pose this one to Lauren here, just because we have someone asking, probably just thinking about different programming options here. They're wondering if criminology works well with studying psychology, which Bailey, I'm sure you could speak to as well. But we'll start with Lauren, and then Bailey, if you want to chime in anything before you ask the next question, we can definitely do that too. But Lauren, the floor is yours.
I find that criminology and psychology kind of go hand in hand. Like I find there's overlap in some subject matter and also in like terms and stuff. That's why I like decided to stick with psychology as a minor along with my criminology major. I just thought they meshed really well together, and like understanding criminology and psychology seemed like such a beneficial pair.
Yeah, I would tack on and say that what I really liked about both programs and what I find really interesting, and I could spend this entire next 20 minutes talking about this, but I won't, I'll save it. I really liked how learning about why people are doing the things that they're doing. And so within psychology, you're learning about people's behavior all the time. You're learning about personality traits, all of those different social psychology things. And you're learning those things in your criminology and criminal justice program as well, right? Like, why are people committing crime? And then once they commit that crime, what's the best way to deal with those who commit crime? So you're talking about behavior a lot. And for me, that was something that I always found really interesting. So I found a lot of my classes were overlapping just in terms of subject material that I found really interesting too. But I know one program, and Julie, I think you can kind of speak to this really well because it's about human rights. You know, in terms of like what types of classes you're taking, or what types of coursework are you kind of doing within that human rights program? I guess is this person's question. So talking about the types of classes that are available in human rights.
Sure, yeah, I'll give a couple examples for you guys. So with my human rights courses, I guess I could kind of put them into two categories, like domestic human rights being like in the Canadian context, and then international. In terms of international human rights, I took an international human rights course where I learned all about international human rights provisions like the UN and things like that. And I'm actually next semester taking a course called Crimes Against Humanity, which sounds super interesting. It's a seminar class. And then in the Canadian context, I took a course called Discrimination in the Law. And I also took a course called The Rights Revolution, where we studied case law following the advent of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. One more thing I will say, if you're interested in human rights, moot court is also an elective under the Human Rights Department. And that if anyone has any questions about that, I'd be happy to delve in further, but that's been probably one of my favorite human rights courses because it's an example where we're able to argue a fictional case that's based on real case law and real human rights issues. So it really intersects a lot of the skills that I've gained in human rights, but even if you're not a human rights major, you can still get involved in this program. I just wanted to highlight that when we're in the realm of human rights, but there's more information on like the full listing of the course offerings of human rights, but those are a few of the highlights for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever need to check in about it, one might be kind of a future thinking idea, but once the course registration opens for students, even in advance of that, you'll be getting notified of, oh, here are the courses available to first year students. A lot of these, for context, will likely be introductory level courses, which is fair. You kind of need to learn how to study some of these subjects and learn some of the basics before you can just dive into some of these more complex situations and subject areas. But that's kind of the neat part of picking what could be a double major for a lot of you. But we'll step out of the psychology, human rights. We'll step out of the ologies and some of the social sciences here, and we're going to jump over more into the humanities here. So there's an absolute yes that's going to answer this question. I think Lauren could probably speak to it best, as I'm guessing you're in the middle of rehearsals right now anyways, but found time to do this kind of thing. We have someone asking, are there performing opportunities in the theater? And they cited they've been unsurprisingly in the black box before for Drama Fest, which if you are a New Brunswick high school student, if you've ever done a drama festival, then you probably know the black box by now pretty well. But yeah, Lauren, if you're willing to talk about even academic and then even non-academic performing opportunities, I feel you'd probably be the resident expert on that.
Yeah, so I love theater at STU. It actually wasn't my intention to take theater when I came to STU, but I had also come to St. Thomas University for Drama Fest. So as an academic component, there are tons of classes, even if you just wanted to take one for fun. The program that I'm a part of, we are in class putting on a musical, and we do like the performance, we make all our costumes, our set, marketing, all that, so you can really see like the behind the scenes and like you perform the show. But aside from academics, we have black box productions at STU, and that is basically an extracurricular opportunity to be a part of theater here. And it's no experience required, even if you're just like, oh, like that sounds like fun, I want to try it out. It's for everyone. It's a really great opportunity to just stay involved in theater or even just try it out.
Yeah, I recommend, like, even if you're not getting into the theater program, like definitely going and watching something in that black box theater is a really cool experience. And you guys might actually have friends that are in the theater program or are doing different productions, and definitely go watch a performance in that black box theater. It's really, really cool. We have another question about sort of double majors and sort of like, how did you guys go about sort of deciding, you know, what two subject areas you were going to either major in or honors in, and just kind of how you go about sort of deciding those things. And maybe Julia, we'll start with you, and if Lauren, if you want to tag on and answer, feel free to do that too.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, coming into STU, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. And I think that's a good thing sometimes. It's good to have direction, but it's also good to explore. So I just took a wide variety of courses. And then by the end of my first year, I realized that it was the discipline of human rights and political science that I was most interested in. And sort of like Lauren was discussing with the intersection with like psychology and criminology, I felt as though that they really complemented each other well. Political science is a really interesting program, and there's a lot of different avenues you can take with it. And then human rights is a unique program that isn't offered everywhere, and it also provided a good complement to political science, especially in the contemporary world that we live in. So I thought that they meshed really well together. That being said, when people do double majors, sometimes they're completely disconnected and unrelated to each other, and they don't need to be directly related. However, I just felt as though that these were the two that I was most passionate about, and I was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to continue with. I initially was going to pursue a different program, but I was like, I'm going to remain open-minded. And then like mid second year, I was like, I think this is the path I'm going to pursue. And I've stuck with it ever since.
Mine is very similar to Julia's. I didn't really know what program I wanted to be a part of when I started here. And criminology and fine arts, which are my two majors, were none of the things that I thought I was going to major in. And like it kind of shows that like these two subjects don't really like align. But I was still really passionate about both of them and wanted them to be like a main part of my degree. So that's kind of how I went about it. And I find like at STU, we have all this time to double major, triple major, double minor, all that crazy stuff. So I just thought like these are the two subjects that I am most interested in. So that's why I made them both my majors.
Yeah, it's going to be a decision-making process. We'll put it that way in short. Which you don't have to worry more so about picking favorites and whatnot, but you can kind of cater things, as everybody else has been saying, to what makes the most sense for what's been catching your interest. There isn't many studies that need to even indicate this. It's just kind of common sense. What draws your interest is what you are going to do best in. So obviously keep your options open. Let's say once course registration rolls around, by all means, try things that are things that you're familiar with, things that you're unfamiliar with, see what sticks out to you. But honestly, just given the candid experience here, like whatever sticks out to you and whatever catches your interest, that is going to be what you end up excelling in, not only in the classroom, but if you're thinking of career endeavors afterward, that is without question the easiest path forward that you can kind of think about when it comes to the whole double major dilemma. That being said, the third place on your kind of podium of academics can always work as a minor. You never know. Bailey, I might ask this question to you, and it might be kind of case-based. So I will speak to certain parts of it, and then I might invite you to speak to other parts of it. So we have someone asking, should they check in before the fall with any services if they're thinking of using them? So I can kind of at least speak to one part of that. So if you're thinking of certain services, maybe like peer tutoring, the writing center, even making use of our wonderful student success coach on campus. These are all things that you can typically wait to get settled once you get on campus. That being said, it's kind of tough if you don't have classes in session to necessarily know what you might need, something like peer tutoring or needing help on an assignment or a paper or any kind of research in the writing center. So those are kind of the things that they are ready. They're going to be willing to hit the ground running with you when you arrive on campus in the fall. But in the meantime, you don't necessarily have to worry about those services if that's what you're specifying to. But Bailey, if you don't mind highlighting any kind of proactive means of getting in contact with any kind of services from your experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think something that I mentioned even in the presentation was that for me, getting into the accessibility services was something that I really needed for my success in the classroom. And if you're someone that either one already knows that you have some learning difficulties, and that's sort of on paper, whether that be a personal learning plan or you're in with your resource teacher or something like that, definitely get in touch with the accessibility services. It is never a bad idea to talk with them about what your path is going to look like. And obviously, everybody who needs different accessibility services, that looks different for each and every person. So having those conversations before you get here can sometimes ease a lot of anxiety and stress, so that you kind of get an idea of what your what your expectations are for coming to university, and having those different support systems in place, so that when you get here in the fall, that's one less thing that you have to figure out. It's already kind of in place for you. During campus tours and things like that, if you are someone who would like to speak with somebody in accessibility, we can make that happen for you too during a campus tour, or after a campus tour while you're here. It is definitely something that I recommend to students who know that they already have some struggles. Definitely talk with those who are in the accessibility services, so that it's one less thing that you have to worry about coming to campus, for sure. The other thing that I'll say too is that with athletics, if you're interested in doing any sports or anything like that, getting in touch with us so that we can kind of get you in touch with the coach. That's something too that you might want to kind of discuss, so that in your final year, or maybe even in your grade 10 or 11 year, you already have those kind of expectations on what that team might look like. Obviously, every year, people graduate and kind of move on. So depending on the year and the team, that coach might have specific sort of requirements that they're looking for to fill those roster spots too. So getting in touch with the coaches early is also another kind of service, I guess, that I would say to definitely get involved in as well. Kind of going on and piggybacking off of this, in terms of extra curricular activities, I'll pitch this to both Julia and Lauren. How do you balance all of this? I know that that's always a big question. You guys are very heavily involved in not just your academics, but also things outside of the academics. So how do you kind of balance all of those things, or maybe some tips and tricks on how to kind of balance those as well?
Yeah, so something that you'll hear in your transition universities especially is just how key time management is. I have my special agenda, and I honestly just plan everything. It's easy to get overwhelmed, especially when you look at like the week and you look at like your deadlines. You look at maybe you have a practice, or you have a meeting, or a club and society event. It can seem really overwhelming. So I always recommend to people, manage your time. You can see the student success coach if you need support with that. And really, I use the motto of taking it day by day. You wake up in the morning, you tackle everything that needs to be done, and you do it again the next day. And then in the meantime, you always need to make sure that you keep time for self-care, because that's how you don't get burnt out. It is very easy, especially like we're coming up to exam season. It's really easy to reach that point of burnout. So the earlier you start perfecting time management, the more manageable your schedule will become. And I promise you, you can do it. You can balance. And maybe when you start at STU, you can maybe take up like one club or society, see how comfortable you're feeling with it. And then coming second semester, you can see, okay, maybe this is too much for me, or maybe I can take on more. So just be patient with yourself, because it is a transition, but I promise you it's not impossible to do both.
I'll just kind of echo what Julia said. Definitely like keep a planner kind of day by day. I put like any meeting or even just like my classes in my like calendar on my computer. So I get like reminders 15 minutes before it happens, just in case I like really forget about something. It's always there. But something I cannot recommend enough is at the start of each semester, when you start your classes and you get your syllabus, make like a document with like all your due dates, and then like make an expectation for yourself of when you want to get like that assignment done. If you're like, oh, I have a really busy few days leading up to the actual due date, I want to get it done before, like just set those deadlines for yourself, so like you can hold yourself accountable and you're not like handing in things late. That's my best advice, I'd say.
Perfect. So we are beginning to wind down, folks. So I think we're going to take two more questions. So I'll ask one here, and then I think Bailey, you can probably pose naturally. I think both of these final two questions are going to go to both Julia and Lauren again. So thank you for your question answering. It's been wonderful so far, hence the continuation of asking these things. And then we'll give you a little bit of context of how to kind of keep in touch with us, that kind of thing. There are some questions that if they don't get answered, we're terribly sorry. That being said, this in advance is not the last time you'll ever be hearing from us, I can assure you. And there's other specific events. So I've seen some questions that have come in about, tips for scholarship applications, for getting to know people, for getting involved, that kind of thing. Honestly, we have a whole series of virtual events lined up from really the new year up until the time that you arrive on campus. So there's a good chance that there's an individualized event for that and for that reason only. So tune into those events, come to campus, ask your questions, come to the virtual winter open house, come to the spring open house in March. These are all things that we would highly encourage you to kind of get some of those more specific answers for. So I'll ask Julia and Lauren here real quick before we do get to our last question. And it's going to be a bit of a different take on it because it's very different as someone that also did student council in high school. But we have someone that's currently in their high school student council, and they're kind of wondering, does student government, in this case we'll say STUSU, the Students Union, does that take on a bigger role at the university level? So we happen to have a couple of folks from the Students Union right here. So Julia and then Lauren, if you want to speak to that a little bit, and then we can wind down with our last question.
Sounds good. This is my cup of tea. I'm happy that someone asked about it. So I was also involved in student government in high school. I loved it. I did it grade 9 to grade 12. And it was something right away I knew I wanted to get involved in at STU. I will say with STU, there's such a variety and options. Lauren can speak more to her role as a representative. I'm currently STUSU, which is a students union, St. Thomas Students Union. I'm currently an executive member, and I'm a vice president education. So just to give you an example of what my role entails is it's an advocacy role. So basically I talk and have meetings with the people at the university, with government officials, for instance, advocating for students students need better access to mental health resources. Students need better access to financial aid. So you're really a part of really important conversations. I also have colleagues that plan major events on campus. There's such a diversity in the ways you're able to get involved. And like you said, it's just taking on a bigger role. But the beauty of it is because there are multiple opportunities in the positions that you can get involved with and the people you can represent, you can tailor how much you want to get involved to the role that you are running for. So it's completely up to you. If you want to huge role that requires a lot of responsibility, you can apply for run for an executive position in your upper years, or if you want to start with being on a committee or maybe running for a representative position, that's also a great option. But I know Lauren also is on the Students Union with me, so she can share some of her story.
Yeah, so I was also on student council in high school, and when I came to STU, I was yeah, I want to keep doing this. So in my first year, I was a first year representative. My second year, I was Carrington Hall representative, which was my residence. And this year I am an at-large representative. And that kind of just means that I'm helping express the voice of those students under that category, I guess. And planning events, finding ways to solve problems, stuff like that. And I the roles that I've had so far. They're a smaller commitment than what Julia's doing right now. But nonetheless, it still feels nice to have express student voice and try to make a difference on campus. With that being said, if you are planning on living in residence has house committee, and that is also a great opportunity to get involved in something like student council, but on a smaller scale.
Awesome. So the last question for tonight, and one of my favorite questions, I think too, is what was the main reason that you picked St. Thomas when you were in grade 12 and having all of these, schools come and talk to you about, what they have, why STU? So I guess, Julia, I'll start with you, and then Lauren, you can end it. And yeah.
Yeah, so the reason that I chose STU, I went on campus tours at different institutions. And when I came to my campus tour at STU, I automatically knew that this is where I wanted to go. And I think it is because of the sense of community. The relationship, I was able to meet with a professor, and just that relationship I had in high school with knowing my professors or knowing my teachers, feeling comfortable seeking help, I felt as though I could continue that and have personal growth at an institution that was a tight community. So I thought it was a really great place for both intellectual growth and personal growth, where I could still build relationships, because with the transition university, it can be really nervous, and I wasn't scared to seek help from my professors because of the community atmosphere. So I know we've been talking a lot about community tonight, but that's the most simple answer that I can give you.
The reason that I chose STU was because I didn't know really what I wanted to do after um, my university education, and I thought that there was like so much opportunity here to try so many different subjects and see like what I was interested in. And along with that, like I had come here every year for Drama Fest, and I was able to form connections with fine arts professors at STU even before I started attending STU. And I just thought that kind of spoke to the environment and just the community, like we've been talking about. And I just love the campus too. So yeah.
Well said. Perfect. In which case, Bailey, you're welcome to pass along any concluding thoughts as well. But naturally, with the whole digital realm of things, I can certainly remind folks once again, if you do happen to have other questions, again, this contact info is existent, whether you apply or not, whether you've already applied or not. Admissions@stu.ca is a great catch-all to have any of your questions answered via email. That being said, if you visit stu.ca, there is also a feature where you can use an online chat kind of sorts, where you pop right in and you can talk to one of our tour ambassadors, which cough, a number of them happen to exist in these panels. On top of that, you can always keep in touch with us that way with myself, with Bailey, or a number of other members of our admission staff here at St. Thomas. But otherwise, if you just visit stu.ca, that's an easy way of kind of keeping in the loop on things. That being said, we do have social media as well. So if you are on any major social media, feel free to give us a follow. And most accounts are listed at St. Thomas U. So if you need something easy, then just look up St. Thomas University. We're pretty tough to miss on that front. But otherwise, I think we are good to wind down now. So Bailey, if you want to pass along any thanks, I can certainly pass along my thanks to Bailey for serving as a wonderful MC of tonight's proceedings. But anything you'd like to add before we conclude here tonight, Bailey?
Just want to thank you for being here. Julia and Lauren, thank you for being on the call as well. And then Mike, of course, for also helping me be part of this as well. So I appreciate you guys, but I also appreciate those who attended tonight as well. So thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you have a happy holiday season.
Perfect. Take care, everyone.